when it comes to our dough, as you see, my starter has grown quite a bit. And it smells like beer. It smells really good.
Yay, beer.
This is rather sticky stuff, as you can see. How are you going to get out of the bowl? Well, there's a couple of things you can do.
Dough scraper?
Let me move back here a little bit. I'm going to take my water, which I've got about 2 whole pounds of it here, a little over 2 pounds of it. And I'm going to take this and I'm just going to pour it around the edge of my sponge. And as I kind of just loosen it up, the water is going to do the work for me. You're going to notice it's like just kind of moving around in there now. Because the water loosens up that sponge. And really, it comes out quite easy. Now, of course, that's not perfectly clean or anything, but it made it a lot easier. And I just keep a scraper around to kind of get the rest of it. I think you'll be glad it does this because cleanup is so much easier when you have a bowl that's like that. It's already moist. It's already been...
That's funny.
It's already been affected. Remember, all the yeast is in here now. So we don't have to have any yeast added. All the yeast has been doing its work in here. I'm just going to go ahead and put the remainder of the flour in. And mind you, I'm only making a single batch.
Just out of curiosity, can we put the flour in first and then put the sponge on top so it doesn't explode when we turn the mixer on?
Yeah, you could do that as long as you make sure that it gets properly mixed and just double check your speed too. Make sure it's on speed 3. That's really
True. You make sure it's not on speed 3?
Not on speed 3. Yeah, because if it's on speed 3.
This is right frequency for me.
Yeah, it's going to be a surprise to the century.
It's a headache.
So, speed 1, right? 4 minutes. Now we're going to let this go for a few minutes while we watch this come up. Watch us get some gluten development in it. We want gluten development. This is a dough that requires a fair amount of gluten in order to do a good job. It's if you read the recipe, you'll see that the hydration on this is not as high as the baguette recipe. Baguettes are about 67–68% hydration. This is more like 50 to 55%. So it's really pretty dry dough as doughs go. Now the dough's not going to be as sticky as well. It's going to be easier to work with because of that. It is dry enough though that I've actually got a little container of water up on my station, so I can actually wet my station down a little bit as I work with it. And you're going to see why in a little bit. It's actually quite difficult to work with if it's too dry. But that also, with all this cool air in here, and we haven't had rain in a month, it dries out quick. And you're going to notice you get this scaly kind of cracked appearance on the outside of your bagel dough. Keep it covered with plastic. That way you're not going to have a lot of problems with cracking and drying. In this environment, it's been very dry lately. Humidity's been down around 25–30%. And while that's nice, it's also not nice for dough.
Or fire.
Yeah, I can't burn leaves in my yard right now.
Somebody set the Shawnee National Forest on fire.
Yeah, there are people out there burning.
No, they didn't. It wasn't an accident.
No,
somebody set it.
This wasn't one of the controlled fires. No, there's like over 1,000 acres that's been burning over the last 2 days that they think somebody set.
Yeah, somebody set it.
Or someone's fired it out of control.
Yeah.
Too.
No, because they would have considered that an accident. Somebody set this fire.
They consider yours.
They set this
fraud.
They're just out to get out of the world. Screw you, squirrels.
I want my trees back. Well, it's been bone dry, and that bone dryness is having an effect on our dough as well, and effect on everything we do. Bread's a very sensitive stuff. It's very much a living thing, part of our environment. And if you have dry weather, you're going to have dry dough. The flour will be drier, might require more hydration than normal, but it's forming a nice dough, just a fairly dry dough. You're going to notice our pretzel dough later this week is going to be very similar. It's got a very similar texture to it.
So is all pretzels made with lye?
No, actually, if you look at Alton Brown's recipe online, he uses baking soda. Now, that's because it's safer, right? But if you really want that brown color, that nice, good, original shine and color you get out of a traditional soft pretzel, you've got to use lye.
Isn't that like poison? Do you use soap?
Well, it's not soap. It's the caustic element, so. But that would be using industrial grade lye. Food grade lye we typically will use for food. But the thing is, we are careful with it. One, we dip our pretzels in it carefully. We make sure we don't get it in our eyes, things like that. We also leave our vents open and we keep the fan running back there so all the lye that evaporates away goes up the chimney and doesn't come into the room. Otherwise, we'll all be walking around with our eyes stinging because it gets into a vapor form.
Kind of like they're stinging now.
They're stinging now because people are doing onions.
Wuss. Yes, I said wuss. Who else is whining about onions?
Sit and spin, buddy.
Second speed. Let's see if we can handle it.
When your elbow hits the ground, your eye's over. Yeah.
As you remember, when we were back when we were doing bread, first speed is what gets the initial gluten development going. Second speed is what improves the gluten. So you can see though, the motor is having a hard time.
So 4 minutes on speed 1 and then
4 on speed 2.
4 on 2.
Yeah, if you can handle it.
Why is it like that?
It's what happens is it gets between the bowl and the dough hook, the dough does, and it actually is too much for the motor to handle. So if you run into problems with your mixer, if it starts getting warm back here where the motor is, shut her down to speed 1, just finish out with speed 1. See? Yeah, see, it just come unplugged. It didn't come unplugged.
Just overheated?
But I may have blown the breaker. If it's too much, then what happens is you have to go back and check